Hi, I think we're gonna have a fun episode today. I've picked 10 interesting games, so hopefully you like checking them out. Also, watch the video to the very end as I am tackling an important subject during the outro. See what I did there? I traveled back in time, cause I know what I did already, even though I'm here now before. Crazy. Beavers is an arcade platformer and an Amiga exclusive. The Animal Kingdom holds more secrets than you'd ever know. Really. For instance, did you know that they have very hierarchy-based societies with low, middle and high-class citizens? Or forestizens, I should say, really, because they live in the forests. And they can hold different occupations too. So, some are builders, some are hunters, some are lazy no-gooders that their family has to support, and some can even be musicians if they want to. And this is precisely what our titular beavers are. Interforest stars of unprecedented proportions, bigger even than the formerly hugely popular Rapping Rabbit Rockers. So, whenever they play in your local forest, meadow or near a neighborhood pond, male animals try to look as cool as they can, and females make sure to shine their furs and sharpen their clothes to look presentable. Everyone seems to love their beaver band phenomenon. Well, everyone but the Rapping Rabbit Rockers, who be rapping no more. In retaliation for their career's sudden and abrupt end, they kidnapped Jeffro's wife. Oh, I failed to mention it before, but Jeffro is a lead vocal, obviously. What's more, rabbits refuse to let her go before the beavers disband and promise to abandon the music forever. So, Jeffro, angel-voiced beaver, refuses and sets off on an adventure to free his wife all on his own, using beaver fu, a beaver-centric offshoot of kung fu. Not as deadly, but boy oh boy how stylish. I know, quite a story for a platformer. The game is composed out of 20 differently themed levels, and like most other platformers though, they are not bundled in the respective teams to form worlds or whatever, but mixed seemingly on random, which, if I'm to be honest, feels more fresh and less stale as they vary more often. You'll meet numerous different enemies on your adventure, rabbit and otherwise, and will have to make sure to get rid of them to rescue your love. Every 6 levels you'll encounter a boss, which takes a bit more time and thought to put down, but is a fun change of pace and will require you to learn their attack patterns. Various pickups and hidden areas are sprinkled all over the game's world. Finding them and then figuring out the way to get to them will add a nice, even if not too demanding, touch of the environmental puzzling. The presentation of beavers is spectacular. Graphics are colorful, very cartoon-like, and the animation is stellar, super smooth and high quality. In fact, there is nothing I could complain about when it comes to beavers. So if you're looking for one definitely not disappointing and worth completing game from this video, this is the one. Now, this one's gonna be a bit tough to tackle. So, Battle Valley is a game. Well, I take it all back, it was pretty easy actually. You know, sometimes I surprise myself, I'm so good at it. Words, sentences, pfft, I mastered them all. I mean, who else could telegraph as much information in as few words? Who? Tell me. What? I did not say enough about the game? Seriously? You don't consider it plenty already? Okay, let me think. Alright, Battle Valley is a dual horizontally scrolling shooter that originated on C64 before it was ported to the Amiga, and that should tell you a lot. It's fundamentally 8-bit in its design arcade game with a presentation refreshed and lifted to more modern at the time systems level. The terrorists have stolen 2 nuclear weapons. Oh no, I know, what are we going to do? Well, we could try to recover them for one, and maybe take a little well-deserved retribution on the bad guys in the process. For all the stress and anguish, you know? So, we can do it in either helicopter or a tank, alone or with a friend. Each of the stolen weapons is kept at the very end of the gameplay area, on the far off left, and the other on the far off right, so you can go after them in any order you see fit. When playing alone, you can actually switch vehicles mid-mission, and to do so you only need to come back to the home base. A good strategy is to shoot off all the earlier enemies with a copter first, repair bridges, and then jump back into tank to complete the mission. Battle Valley takes place in a valley, and that valley alone, and gives you 4000 seconds to complete the game. So, a little over an hour. That's plenty enough, right? Well, losing a life costs you 500 of these, and you know what that means. Time is precious, we only have as much of it, so cherish every moment, don't waste it on toxic folks, spend your time with your loved ones, and play good games. Also, that last one is not mandatory, but I felt like adding it anyway. Battle Valley's graphics is not great, however you wanna look at them. I mean, it's not bad either, but it's just good enough to stand out from the 8-bit crowd. 3-level parallaxing and smooth animation are a definite highlight, so there's that at least. If you enjoy simple 8-bit in their design arcade shooters, then this one, even on a 16-bit system, will be quite fun, especially with a friend. But if you look for something deeper, better keep looking, cause you're not gonna find it in Battle Valley. The Lord of the Darkness tricked and captured 3 guardians of the world, a unicorn, which funny enough on the game box cover is depicted as a unicorn-Pegasus hybrid, a hawk, a majestic creature that I have no complaints about here, other than it was not watching his surroundings like a, well, hawk, and a beam of light. Now, what that is in particular, I do not know. A sentient laser, perhaps? Still, they're imprisoned, and now the Lord of the Darkness reigns. You play as a Beastlord, a medieval fantasy equivalent of Riddick. You know, the bold tough guy from Pitch Black and Chronicles of Riddick who ran around growling, flexing his muscles and killing stuff. And yeah, I refuse to acknowledge any other movies being in the series than these two. Anyway, having a special connection with Beast, you have to explore 3 large levels to find and free the Guardians so that they could get back to their post and protect the world from the evil once more. If it was up to me though, I'd hang the job opportunities sign on the window and hired someone else. These 3 are definitely not up for it. The game is side-scrolling and divided more or less equally between beating the enemies up and adventuring with quite a lot of puzzling. So, while you will destroy any and all enemies stupid enough to get in your way, collect the spoils, usually in the form of items, food and money, food that I must add is necessary for your survival, and also communicate with characters and animals that you'll meet, you'll solve a lot of puzzles, which mainly consist of either using various items in appropriate spots or trading them in with different characters for other useful things. The game also features a day-night cycle, which is kinda important as some actions can only be performed at certain times, so if you can't figure out how to solve a particular puzzle, even if seemingly you're in the right spot with the right item in hand, waving it like a lunatic, then perhaps it's the wrong time. Oh, and there's basic magic too, so there's that. Presentation-wise, Beastlord is really impressive. The backgrounds parallax nicely and are detailed, even if usually in shades of one color only, be it brown, blue or whichever else. They seem to stick to the shades of it. Sprites are intricate and fluidly moving, and overall, all of the presentation has this overarching and rather nice fantasy/mystery theme. Sounds are okay too, and well suited to the rest of the gameplay. So, why haven't I spoke about the gameplay yet, you may wonder? As in how it feels, that is. Well, Beastlord is one of those titles that you either have to have some kind of a walkthrough at hand's reach when playing, or you'll get annoyed quite a lot with. It's not always very clearly indicated where you should go and what to do. Not all puzzles are straightforward, and generally speaking, without a guide, it often feels like a walk in the dark with a lot of guesswork and a blindfold over your eyes on top of that. It's not a bad game, just one that could use an extra month or 2 of polish, and without it, fails to deliver. Bermuda Project is a point-and-click adventure game. You're Bill Benson. I mean, perhaps you're not, maybe you're John Doe or even Jane Doe, who am I to question your identity, but in the game, you're Bill. And you're a top-class investigative reporter, best in New York, perhaps in the world even. And you've been always fascinated with the Bermuda Triangle disappearances. I mean, ships, planes, all vanishing without a trace. Producing no bodies, no scattered remains of vehicles or odd items that could have been carried by them. There's gotta be something behind it, right? Well, you seem to be convinced, so you set off on an investigation like no other. A case of your life, one that can bring your career to the heights previously unheard of, your fame to an international star level, and money in heaps. Though, arguably that last is not what you're after. It should be though money is useful and helps a lot. Anyway, while flying across the Bermuda Triangle, your plane is hit by a lightning, goes down faster than that buddy of yours who can't handle liquor and somehow always finds himself drinking way too much anyway, and it crashes on the unknown island. Coincidentally, same as that friend of yours, but he usually does on the floor. So, stranded, alone, with your pilot dead and a plane on a raging hell-hot fire, you have to find a way to escape and in the process understand the truth behind the mystical natural phenomena. First thing you'll need to do on this strange island is to put out the fire fast, all to get a vital piece of equipment from the burning wreck. And I only mention it here as it will be a permanent arc throughout the entire game. Not the putting out of fires, mind you, but quick-time events that will require prompt action or they may otherwise end up with your death or failure. Along your adventure you learn that there are 6 passengers and a pilot stranded on the island too, and you'll have to rescue them before they escape. Each of the passengers is held by a different group of natives, and each requires solving a different complicated puzzle to free them. There's plenty of smaller challenges all across the game too, and they're a mixture of environmental and inventory ones. You can only carry a certain number of objects at the time, so always make mental notes where you leave what, as some of them may be called to be used more than once. Bermuda Project is nowhere near the quality of the best adventure games, but it's a pretty good one, and sometimes good is just enough. One thing I don't like are the Sierra-like game-stopping deaths, but that's me, and perhaps it's not a biggie for someone else. Beyond Dark Castle is a direct follow-up to earlier Dark Castle and an adventure platformer that originated on Apple Macintosh. The hero of the previous game that you were controlling finally got a name, and it's Prince Duncan. So, It's a name and a bump in social status, all in one go. And you have to help him defeat his arch-nemesis, the Black Knight, once more. To do so, you have to get to him first, which is easier said than done. Fortunately, you've Merlin on your side, and he told you that in order to open Evil Villain's chambers, you'll need to retrieve 5 magical orbs scattered around the castle grounds. And when you do, deliver them safely and place on 5 pedestals in the anteroom. 10 out of 15 levels are single screen only and static, while 5 are scrolling. I've only mentioned it here as in the original there were no scrolling stages whatsoever. The last 15th level, Black Knight chambers, are only accessible after successfully retrieving of all the orbs. All levels are filled with enemies and these have to be either navigated around somehow or disposed of. There's also a fair bit of environmental puzzling, in which case a helicopter packed with gas will be extremely useful for the obvious opening of locked off areas and flying around like Michael Jackson did in one of his concerts in the early 90s, looking like a cheap astronaut knockoff, respectively. You also get rocks for throwing, bombs for, well, exploding things into non-existence, and to make passages, and elixirs that replenish your health and give you that mind-freeing buzz that lets you hold onto your sanity while exploring monsters-filled stronghold. All that, combined with your uncanny gaming skill, will no doubt provide numerous action-packed fantasy castle adventures. Beyond Dark Castle's presentation is decent. Not spectacular, I'm afraid, but for 1989 it's definitely not worth complaining about. And the gameplay? Well, gameplay is one tough cookie, both in terms of challenge it provides and playability. Because while it's not a bad game, I always found myself a little too annoyed with gameplay to ever complete it. So if you're like me, it may not be the best pick to spend an afternoon playing. Blade was a daywalker, had an awesome katana and cut vampires left and right, mainly but not only on the streets of New York. It is also a very late Amiga exclusive and an isometric turn-based fantasy RPG, a completely different thing to our Marvel's anti-hero. A powerful evil demon, Quoll, that once had been the scourge of the realm of the living, was long defeated, his body destroyed so that no sentient vessel could house his immortal soul anymore. Soul that was bound to, nay, locked in a sword. A very same that was used to kill him. That's pretty ironic, don't you agree? The world was free and peaceful, seemingly to remain that forever. After a volcanic eruption, when everyone's been distracted by the dangerous phenomena, sword hosting Quoll's life essence was stolen by his dark servants, keeping the memory of him alive and hoping to once be able to bring him back. This, it seems, was finally their time. Once Sword's disappearance has been discovered, a group of 4 heroes is summoned to retrieve it, and fast before it's too late. These 4 are the most veiny and covered in shiny oil bodybuilders we could find in local medieval gyms, and the most learned, book-read and huge glasses wearing scholars too, and an elf. They are the Fantasy Avengers. Blade doesn't offer a character creator upon start, but lets you pick the 4 from a list of available braves, each of their own class. So there's warrior, thief, empath, elf, cleric, wizard and a dwarf. Combat in Blade is kinda similar to that in XCOM, divided into turns, enemies and hours, and action points based. Though it has to be said that compared to the Microprocess classic, it's heavily simplified. Defeated monsters leave spoils, usually gold, which then can be deposited in a bank for safekeeping or used to purchase new and better equipment. Interestingly enough, the game was released by the publisher without securing the agreement to do so from the developer, RickyC, who also received nothing from them for it. No money, no mention and no thank yous. Well, you could say that they gave him the middle finger, but that's hardly a reward worthy of a video game. So, years later, he decided to release it for free, and it's available that way to download on his website to this very day. Black Shadow is a sci-fi arcade vertically scrolling shoot 'em up. Also, a rather bad game. But what's most important here is getting to the heart of the biggest mystery of it all. So, what color is the shadow? Some would say it's black, others might say grey, or an unspecified darker shade of whatever is being casted upon at any given time. What do you think though? Well, shadow has no color. Shadow is the absence, or to be more precise, a limited presence of light. So yeah, there's that. In our game though, Black Shadow is a deserted asteroid presumed to host alien base in the past. And you, being the ultimate badass that you are and a person basically skilled in everything from paper plane making to rocket science, are sent there in a spaceship fighter to check it out. And as you do, you quickly discover that one of the structures on the rock that was supposed to be abandoned has begun to open, spitting hundreds of alien ships in the process, all bent on annihilating all human life. And you only went there to deliver peace offering in the form of 4 gluten-free pizzas. How uncool of them. So enemies come in the form of these alien drone ships to dispose of, and ground, or surface I should say really, installations for destruction of which you have separate from your standard blaster, bombs. Interestingly enough, some of the buildings are so tall that you will have to avoid them, not to splash in them like bugs do on your windshield. Black Shadow's biggest problem, however, is not the lack of variety in weapons, but the difficulty. It's unforgiving and tends to send enemies at you in groups, which can easily overwhelm you if not taken care of instantly. Fortunately, to counter it, you're not in a ship made of paper or dreams. No. Yours is a state-of-the-art machine. It features heated seats and steering, air conditioning, electric windows and wipers, and most of all, triple shielding, meaning that you only die if you get hit 3 times. Did I mention Italian leather upholstery? It's magnificent. And all of it was included in price. Anyway, dying, which hopefully won't happen to you given how amazing you are, moves you back to the very beginning of this stage, which is hella annoying, especially because of how tough the game is. You can play it with a friend though, but Black Shadow is probably the only multiplayer game in existence in which I'd suggest not playing together. Why? Because when one of you dies, both of you get moved back to the beginning, and players hardly ever are of a similar skill. I mean, playing with you, no one is. And last but not least, or actually yeah, last and least, the controls are awful. If I was to recommend Black Shadow, I would recommend using its discs as a shoot-in practice targets. Nothing more. Blastar is a multi-directional scrolling shoot-'em-up, and a much better game than Black Shadow, even if not a hit on its own. The aliens have attacked the Earth, because of course they always do whenever we're about to play a game. What a coincidence. And you, my dear viewer, are our last line of defense. The graphics and sounds in Blastar are incredible, impressive from the moment you launch it until you shut it down. Attention to every pixel is put on your ship, every single enemy big or small, and overall, Blastar feels like an arcade title that somehow ended up on the Amiga. What's not great though are the controls, and sadly, games live or die by them. Pace at which you get to rotate your ship around is just way too low for you to ever feel like you're in full control of whatever's happening on the screen. If that wasn't enough, your ship is subject to inertia, meaning you can't do nothing instantly, neither turn nor stop, it all takes time, which in a shooter is rarely a good idea. Worst of all of it doesn't change all throughout its 12 stages run. Some levels are horizontally scrolling though, and even if not perfect, they're a nice change of pace between the standard ones. The enemies are rather interestingly designed, especially the bosses, and these last will also require you to learn their patterns, which is always fun. You can buy new weapons and other improvements for your ship in the shop, and you should do that as often as you get a chance, because these are your only chance against Blastar's broken controls. Alright, I've been dropping bricks on it for a while now, but if I'm to be honest, Blastar is actually fun. Just not very. So play it only when you don't expect too much and are in a forgiving mood so that the controls won't discourage you. We've covered a mid one, we've covered a dead center average one. It's time that we talk about a good shooter, don't you think? Blasteroids is just that. It originated in the arcades and is a modern take on the asteroids. A ginormous green interspace being invaded our space seemingly out of nowhere, surrounded itself with thousands of asteroid satellites for protection, and is slowly closing the distance to Earth to annihilate us. Or so we assume, cause no one bothered to even try to communicate with it. Enter you. And I like to imagine a scene from an action movie here where you're walking in slow motion towards the camera, in your battlesuit, ready to enter your craft and go and fight for us. All the while, explosions of various magnitudes and power levels going off in the background. Cool. The idea here is that simple. You're going through numerous levels, destroying all the asteroids and enemy ships there, getting closer and closer to the green invader. All to eventually dispose of him too. Your ship has 3 forms into which it can transform. So fast and nimble but low armored one, strong and tough but hella slow, and one that's the dead center average between the earlier two. There are different pickups in Blasteroids too, and naturally it's best that you get to them fast, as most are always useful. So stuff like energy refills, shields, blasters, ripstars, which spin your ship effectively having it spew the projectiles all around it, extra fuel capacity, cloaking device, and a magnet that pulls crystals to you when flying around them. Make no mistake here, Blasteroids is not a great game, but it's a near-perfect arcade conversion and a very decent and fun shooter in its own right. Blazing Thunder is basically Ikari Warriors, but in a tank. So, a top-down arcade-style shoot-'em-up that sees your character, well, in a tank, going upwards and disposing of countless different enemies. And this simple 8-bit feeling design shouldn't come as a surprise, as Blazing Thunder is actually a C64 game that was later on converted to other systems, Amiga being one of them. So other than the slightly uplifted graphics and sounds, it's the same game. So why are you in a tank then, if in a Commando, Rambo and Ikari Warriors you were running around willy-nilly, pew-pewing from your automatic rifle left and right? Well, for the fun factor, and to look tough when opposing the enemies. The fun factor comes from driving over the enemies rather than shooting them, or it did and does not anymore, as now that I'm older, the novelty wears off fast. After what, first 200-300 times? Enemies come in various kinds. There are obviously the soon-to-be splatters of blood on foot that you will drive over, other tanks, planes, helicopters, mobile rocket launchers, and huge armored personal carriers among others. Well, and bosses, and these are actually fun. But yeah, you'll not get bored when it comes to the bodies to put down, is what I'm saying here. Weapons are quite fun too, and you'll get to experience them all without effort, as Blazing Thunder is neither long, being comprised of only 5 stages, nor difficult. Which could be an issue for some, but for me, someone for whom shooters are not the first pick, it's perfect. All in all, while being simple and not very creative in its gameplay loop title, Blazing Thunder manages to be rather fun anyway, and game worth trying out. It's perhaps another of those titles that will not be written about in video gaming history books, but also one that should not be forgotten. Check it out. Pretty cool games, right? I think so too. I mean, I don't particularly love all of them, but they're interesting and that's as much as you can hope to get from an oldie today, especially an obscure one. That said, I've been wondering for a while now about the Big Bang. You know, the supposed beginning of the universe after which it started expanding at an exponential rate. It's a bit of a troubling subject for me, because while I'm all about evolution and there always being logical and scientific explanation of everything, even if we don't have or understand it yet, I fail to grasp where the supposed bang took place. Because if there was nothing before and there was a big bang after and it created the universe, then I don't know, man. If there was nothing, then there was nowhere. If there was nowhere, then where and what banged to become something? It's not a problem that keeps me awake at night anymore, but I come back to it from time to time trying to figure it out and always fail. And also one that makes the simulation theory so appealing, because while it's most likely not the case, if it was, it would explain everything. The bang could be a system power-up, a simulation boot-up so to speak, and all questions from then onward would be answered. Everything, anything, whatever we have or experience here would be run within the constraints and processing capabilities of the machine simulating it. And given the scope of Earth alone, which is a dust particle in the vastness of space, it would have to be a hella powerful system. One I bet that could run Crysis in high detail. What do you think about it? Do you ever wonder? Or maybe the bang happened a second, a fraction of it really, after Thanos snapped his fingers? There's so many questions here. If you like the video, hit those like and subscribe buttons below. Smash them if you have to, it helps more than you could ever know. Also, I would like to thank you and all my amazing Patreon and YouTube members for helping this channel keep going. And last but definitely not least, I would like to thank all the wonderful folks who record and upload playthroughs, let's plays and other retro-centric videos here on YouTube, because they help to preserve the games that would have otherwise be long forgotten. So thank you.